Welcome to the Healers Café, conversations on health and healing with Dr. Manon.
Welcome to the Healers Café. Today I have with me Hilary Crowley, and she's the author of The Power of Energy Medicine, Your Natural Prescription for Resilient Health. And she discovered her interest in the healing arts as the grandchild of 3 doctors. In her early career, she worked at the University of Massachusetts Medical Center, Dartmouth Hitchcock Medical Center, and Exeter Hospital. And since 1995, she has studied with leaders in energy medicine and medical intuition, including, who was it that I was? Miriam Wolf as well. So anyway, I'm really excited to have this conversation with you. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm really excited to be here. I love talking everything about natural healing and the way we can improve our immune system naturally. I'm really excited to talk about, everything that brings us interest, that brings us into this big international community of health and healing.
And it's definitely the time where healers, it's really our time to be visible, and there's lots that is happening all around us. And I think I've been in practice for 30 years myself, and I realize as I'm sort of retiring on some level, I feel like it's the beginning of the real work that needs to be done in this world. So I had a very good feeling when you were showing up today. So.
Thank you. Thank you. I love talking about this. It's actually a very private work we do, right? With the one-on-one, the healing. And then it's really fun to be in the teacher role and be teaching. I know you've just done a beautiful job teaching and spreading information, but I still feel, I don't know about you, but I still feel like it's nice to just talk shop. It's nice to.
Oh yeah. Well, that's why we call it conversations about health and healing, right? It's like basically what's happening, day to day, and what is life like. But I want to ask you first, I mean, that might be a dead giveaway, no pun intended, but three grandparents that are doctors.
Yeah, they actually are all deceased because they were all born in 1899, 19, and I think 1899, 1900, and 1900. So
Okay, interesting.
I think my grandmother was like a few months older than my grandfather. So yes, I have, there was a husband and wife, and those are my mother's parents, and they were in a general practice together. And then my father's dad was a surgeon. And it could be that they all met and knew each other because they're from the same area in New England down here in the United
Okay.
States. But they certainly met and fell in love and had kids. So lots of doctors in the family, nurses, physician's assistants, surgeons. I mean, so I grew up, and it's a funny, it's actually, if you go beyond the obvious, it's a funny little thing. It gives me this sense of the best kind of privilege. Cause I'm like, you're not throwing me off. You're a doctor. Like, I'm gonna go have some mashed potatoes with doctors this evening. You're head of surgery. I know 3 heads of surgery. And so it kind of gave me permission to feel that familiarity.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you weren't, it wasn't like, I mean, you could see it different ways, but familiar as in could be authoritative, but not necessarily somebody that you would listen without a grain of salt, or like they were people.
Right.
Like,
And
people first.
I'm a little bit sassier than that. So I don't take well to authority in general. So especially not if they're like, I'm familiar with you and or you work at the same hospital that, I have respect. There's respect. Absolutely.
Sure. Yeah.
But that's different than, I can't, I can't possibly think of I can't possibly imagine that there could be another solution that you've given me. And more so, I've actually seen the humanity that doesn't always show up in a room, in an exam room. So I know the humanity of, I'm really worried about this patient, or I lost a patient this morning, or I'm exhausted and I have 3 surgeries tonight.
Yeah.
My uncle had a red phone, literally a red phone next to his bed, because up until he was in his late 50s, he chose to be the emergency room on-call doctor for the city hospital.
Wow.
That was his joy and that was his pleasure.
Mhm.
And I bet I fortunately, I was never under his knife, but he had an excellent reputation. But I also had seen him swimming in the swimming pool at 5:30 in the afternoon. And all of us were very tired when we went to bed at 11:30 at night. And when that phone rang at 2 a.m., I knew he had just been asleep a half an hour before he was doing. So I know their humanity too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that allows me to feel more at home with this deep and utter need for really understanding how the body heals. Really understanding, because I do believe that they're just as curious.
That they're just as curious.
Yeah. I mean, one of my stories is I was sent I have several. There's one in my book, but the one I'm going to quote is not in the book, but it's almost verbatim. Probably because the sentiment is so widespread, is I was explaining to a doctor who I was going to help, who had a pretty advanced illness, to say the least, and was sent to me through a friend. And I was explaining to him about why it's a good idea, even though he was in a little bit of a pickle because he works for a hospital. He's surrounded by doctors and he still needs to go to the likes of me, right? Or at least that was what my ego was saying, like, oh, how can I make him feel better about seeing me? Although he called me, he was recommended to me and he followed up on the recommendation, but I still wanted to make him feel better. So I said, just so you know, I honor the practice of this and I honor the practice of that, but I feel strongly in how energy, we all have a life force energy, an intelligent life force energy. As you say so eloquently, we know the energy activates our inner knowing of how to heal. And I went on a little bit like da 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 da. And he said to me, he said, if anybody ever says to you in the medical field that energy and healing and the body's natural intelligence doesn't matter, this is a top doc in Boston. They're either lying to you or they don't have enough experience. So then you start to see, wait a minute, my dream is actually to start talking to the doctors, because they're the ones, scooping the ice cream. They're the ones that are like, help me. I can't only do this. I can't only consume this all day. So I'm a big believer that integration is just a conversation that's needs to get started and continued. And
yeah, no, I so agree. I actually come from a bit of a family of doctors too, but my uncle, who has passed away, he was the twin brother of my mom, and he before passing away, I have him actually on video, because I said, I really want to have your words on this so that I can share it, with other people in healthcare. And he was a thoracic surgeon, and that was sort of his specialty. And he would go visit his patients to see how they recovered. And this is in Europe, in Belgium. And I said, so out of all the things you've learned in, all the specialties and everything else, what is the most important thing you've learned in medicine? And he said, to love my patients. And I was like, wow, that's, it's just a whole other thing, because you see, this anesthesia, this knife, this intensity of all of that type of work, and you don't know if they're going to come out of it. And for that to be the most important thing, it always struck me as like, wow. And in my profession, we're naturopathic physicians, so we're supposed to be much more holistic and understand this, the force of nature and our innate ability to heal. And yet it's very funny. I see not the elders in our practice, but I see kind of a shifting away from that in wanting to be the worst form of green allopaths, like those who haven't had the experience of really helping a person live and get through something, and overcome even chronic diseases, which is not the specialty of allopathy, which is why it's wonderful if they all work together with people who have other aspects to help. But to just understand that phenomena is so huge, so anyway, well, that was a conversation tangent.
No. Can I say it wasn't at
Please.
all, because you promised me that you introduced me to like the intuition of all of this conversation.
Absolutely.
So I don't know if you could see, and those who are listening, you couldn't hear me take my breath away, but you took my breath away. I was in New York last weekend teaching a class about intuition, actually. And one of the really important parts of intuition is this one-on-one work and being honest. I'm getting back to your uncle. To be honest and to show honesty. Honesty beyond the point where you're trying to make yourself sound smarter than you are, or more knowledgeable, or you don't want to you want to hold the authority in the room. Well, when you're honest, sometimes you have to say beautiful things like I don't know.
Exactly.
Groundbreaking words like let me look into it. anyway so um we were talking about boundaries and how important it is to have good boundaries with in my case, I don't call them patients because I'm not medically trained. I'm a working energy healer. So I have clients, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my students were a little surprised when I said, and now I'm surprised that I said, actually, the best boundary you can ever hold in a space is to love.
Mm-hmm.
Is to love. Because every other apparent boundary is filled with conditions.
Mm-hmm.
And so your uncle is
Mm-hmm.
one smart, beautiful soul. And I'm so glad you got that on recording, because if I just know that let's say we're in session and I just say, I know I love you unconditionally. Do you see how everything else falls away? I
Mm-hmm.
see your essence. I want the best for you. If you follow, like, I'm really into the 4 agreements right now as a teaching tool. It falls right into the 4 agreements. I don't take anything personally.
Right.
I'm doing
Exactly.
my best. You're doing your best. I'm not making any assumptions. And I'm being impeccable with what I'm intending to be here, which is love, which is what heals us.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that all the different definitions of love heals us, but your uncle was right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, I think so. Yeah.
That if we ask for love and then we just become vessels, and I see that with allopathic doctors in their best form, right?
Mm-hmm.
They just want to participate in activating the body to heal itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the question also comes up when people do work and they say, do I need to more energy work typically, but do I need to protect myself? And I've often said, actually, no, just give love. Because that is the thing that you don't need. And if you think of the model of this idea that something negative could invade us, as if it really could without our allowing it. And it's like, if you're very conscious about what you let in your body, then you actually have agency over your body. I know there's a few laws that are questioning that recently, but it's one of my pet peeves is like, no, we're careful about what we eat and what we put in our gut and our, our flora and everything else. And then it's like we have to be super conscious about what we let in. But if we're in treatment with somebody else, if we are giving out an energy of love, I really think that has massive, and I don't want to call it protection because it doesn't feel like we need protection if we're in it. We're it. I don't know if this is making any sense.
It does.
Probably does.
I don't disagree with protection. It's not a bad, it's not, it's actually good, but I'm also, as I'm listening to you, clarity, boundaries, balance. It certainly keeps all of the noise of what is my relationship to you. Are you approving of me? Are you
Right. All the ego stuff.
all the
Yeah.
ego stuff? It's like, well, it doesn't really matter if you approve of me, or I know where I stand with you unconditionally. It also carries forth with integrity afterwards. That integrity would be another word, because
Mhm.
I'm an energy worker, right? And I think I know you are, because I've studied your work, and you're an energy worker, so you have to have that integrity
Mhm.
of highest and best.
Mhm.
Otherwise, if we are talking to the nonverbal part of the body, which you are more fluent in than I am in terms of what the language is for the nonverbal, um, or maybe we just fluent in slightly different languages, but
Yeah.
the nonverbal part of the body can hear us if
Mhm.
our intentions are not in integrity.
Mhm.
So all of that is wildly helpful for the ones that we're healing, because I would imagine if I was out of my integrity, I would actually certainly hope that the person I'm working on is say, not you, not today. I can't, I'm
Mhm.
not ready to, I'm not there yet. And
Mhm.
I see that with, with new clients, that they need time to build trust.
Mhm.
So I just have that piece of love, that it's
Mhm.
a form of protection, but we don't need the protection.
Yeah.
It's the, you hope that you go to somebody who is doing their self-care, so that would be us, that we'd be doing enough self-care that we could drop into that very easily
Mhm. Mhm.
and authentically.
Mhm. So what to you is intuitive work? What is it that you do? What does it feel like? What is it?
It's pretty amazing. And as I'm talking about my book, this Power of Energy Medicine, I think it's actually, and you'll appreciate this more than most, I really like to talk about what it isn't.
Okay.
It is not diagnostic. It is not diagnostic, and it is not overriding of the mind and the wisdom of somebody else's energy of
Mhm.
their own body. So it's not diagnostic, and it's not intrusive.
Okay.
Um, although I sometimes the experience can be like, whoa, how did you come up with that, Hilary? I never thought of that. I said, well, I was on your left hip, or I was on your. So I'm a hands-on healer who I float a few inches above the body of where my colleagues are, or I even rest very gently like a cranial sacral. I do not. I have been a patient of Bowen work. I love Bowen work, and my colleagues. I have 3 colleagues that I adore who all do Bowen work, so I'm familiar with the Bowen work. But so I actually probably can feel similar to what you feel with the body work that you do. Um, I just translated in such a way that I get pulled like a magnet. I mean, we're probably
Mhm.
going to be talking the same language, because different people come to this different ways, and here we are, we get to be the students and the teachers of our generation of this. But um, intuition for me is, the body is always healing itself, and sometimes it needs help, because sometimes we don't have to do it alone. So intuition is in me listening inward to the inner intelligence of the person who's decided to share this in the room with me. I once had a woman who I was not at all in session with. We were out to lunch together, and she knew what I did for work. And she said to me, Hilary, can you tell what's going on with me right now? And she was she was having an affair. And I had no idea. I had no idea. I don't even know why she brought it up. And and I was like, no, no, no. And she said, tell me more. And I said, I'm sitting here, I'm thinking about the soup in front of me, and I'm thinking about the view outside, and I'm thinking about how happy I am to be with you. So there was absolutely no permission for me, even because I need to be at lunch and I want to have a good time. And I had my child with me. I wasn't, there was no permission to be intuitive. And I think more importantly, why I'm bringing that story up is that intuition involves permission. Always, always. And, if you're ever, feeling like I have some information on that person and it's, then that's also what it is not.
Yes.
So what it is.
Yeah, that's very well said. I think that's because it's like a channel that you tap into with permission, because otherwise nothing's, you can't tap into anything either, right? There's nothing.
Where would I want
Yeah.
to? Do you want to tap?
Yeah,
That's like universal law. Don't tap into stuff that you're not welcome to tap into. So anyway, I love how everybody in the healing world has the potential to be more intuitive. Can I talk about surgeons for a second?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so surgeons, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but like a surgeon isn't going to cut somebody open if they're not sure that that body's going to heal it back. There isn't like a special glue. I mean, I know there's glue, there's staples, there's tape and everything, but that's just to nudge the body. Surgeons, I think, are potentially one of the most holistic minded people in the world, not because of what they do during surgery, but they believe deeply, maybe even more than, the average holistic person, that body is going to heal itself back. Otherwise, they would never put an incision into the body. In theory, think about it.
I never thought of it that way, but
yeah, because I mean, I it happens all the time. I was with a dear friend of mine who had a C-section. You wouldn't believe how quickly that skin healed. So they didn't open the body with the idea that it would never be closed, but they know darn well they're not the ones who close up that body. The body closes up the body.
Yeah, I mean, you raise a good point, because when you're I just look at them like drug peddlers, some types of doctors. It's like they don't even do physical exams anymore. They just write prescriptions, and with that, you can't see what happens. Really, you don't, you're adding cocktails to your own, internal pharmacy, but like, how do you even tell what's really going on and all that? It's like you don't have the pleasure of really witnessing the power of the body. Whereas I guess with an incision, you do. You see that.
Yeah. I mean, it must be amazing for them, and I wish they'd talk more about it, because it must be amazing to be like, I'm actually doing this to a human body, and I'm relying on her or him, the person I'm working on, to be able to heal this up. I'm going to stitch this back in, or I'm going to remove this or seal this off. And then the middle world that sometimes I integrate with and sometimes I don't integrate with is the world of trial and error. And that can be problematic, right? When you're just trying something and seeing how the body responds, and you have to have a really, I don't know if it's a lot of compassion or no compassion to just say, go see what happens and call me, in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Reminds me slightly of certain things that are going now.
Yeah, the 3 weeks. Well, if we can we go back in history to not too long ago, I think like around, do you have St. Patrick's Day up there?
Yep.
Yeah. So
a lot of Irish people here.
So that was like a little joke about, I miss you guys. I'd really like to go up and visit you. That's a story for another story. But way back when I used to visit Canada, remember that? It was like it was around St. Patrick's Day of 2020. Um, that little thing that happened actually wasn't about pharmaceuticals at all, was it? I had clients who were ready to give birth that the hospital said, please give birth at home. I'm like, oh, this is new. Please give birth at home. I had people who were sick. They said, you know what? Actually, that's an elective situation. You're okay. There were a really, really important set of months. I would say it went on for 3 or 4 months, where suddenly those of us who believed in the body's natural ability to heal were where it was at.
Mhm.
Tell me what you know about vitamins. Tell me what you know about nutrition. Tell me what you know about energy work.
Hi, I'm Dr. Manon Bolliger, and I wanted to take a moment to thank you for watching these podcasts. If you haven't subscribed, please do. Also, feel free to leave comments and like it. This way, more people get to find out about this work and about other choices for health. So I think it's really important that we all share this information. I have a free gift to you. It's a 7-sequence email that has tips for every day, and it's a little insight about how to live your life when it comes to health. And it's very much built on how I managed to overcome stage 4 cancer and what it took. So I would love you to have this, and thank you once again for listening to these podcasts.
And I'm not going to forget that moment just because a new moment is having its day. Because I don't think the rest of us will forget it either. That we were whatever the rest of us means, but as everything settles on to the next chapter, because I do believe a next chapter is coming. I just believe a next chapter is coming in terms of kind of the balance, how because of the work you do, the body needs balance, and the collective we tend to go towards balance. But I just want to remind us that we needed natural healing for the first 4 months of this pandemic, maybe the first year of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting from your perspective, because if you're in a so-called licensed professional, which we are, as licensed naturopathic physicians, we actually had to completely abdicate all our knowledge. We actually had to not use anything we know, because we weren't allowed to say in any outward way that we can prevent, that we can even deal with or help people who had this syndrome. We were just like totally unable to deal with that.
Can I
by law
offer my, I would say, condolences or just my sympathy. Like, I'm remembering I would post things and there would be coupled with, to find out real information, go to this site right here. But it didn't take my post down.
Yeah. So, but it's many, like not just the natural healthcare industry license. It was also many medical doctors who had some solutions that were just not the one that we were all supposed to blindly go for, as we're part of experimenting what it would do. It's like there were lots of options that were censored, literally. And I just think that I had hoped when this began that it would be the moment where people would look at their health and go, wow, people that are not doing well have comorbidities. Now is our chance to really look at our health, the body, the mind, the spirit, but all of it. And and then as lockdowns happened, and I know in the States it was a little different in different places, and in Canada too. I mean, Ontario was under the most brutal lockdown that I think outside of North Korea, that's about it. I mean, it was unbelievable. And with California, I think had it pretty bad too. But you can't go to the beach, you can't go out, you can't, no natural vitamin D, all of these things that were counterintuitive to health. And me saying this, in fact, my license got suspended anyways. But you can't say these things. It was actually shocking to me. And what happened too is a lot of people started realizing that there's really something else going on here. So I think we got there, but not in the way that I had thought. It would be so simple. There's so many things. The world is going to listen, and we're going to be able to really show people how natural things work. But anyway, it wasn't done that way. It just happened another way. But now I think a lot of people are asking many more deep questions. So I'm excited to see what will happen. I don't know how you're feeling about all this, but
yeah, I'm excited to see what kicks up a conversation, and it's a crisis within a crisis within a crisis,
Mhm.
and what is going to keep the conversation going are going to be conversations like this. And can I just also say, I'm really sorry that you lost your license, because I can see how that's or suspended or
Mhm.
yeah. So, what I guess I want to ask you is, it's been shocking for all of us in many ways. So maybe I want to ask you, because I bet that was big, and I know you have a lot of listeners who love you, and say, how are you dealing with your shock?
um I mean, I was shocked first, like shocked as in what on earth could be wrong with telling people not to be in fear and to trust everything they knew about their bodies, and to add the things that would help your general immune system. I did not know then that you can't use the word immune, that you can't uh, relate anything to that C word, and it's not cancer, the other one, you know? And so, yeah, I think I was like, this can't be for real. Like it's not for real, So I was trying to like, oh, maybe I misunderstood it. I read it over many times. And then I realized that that there are issues that I care about in ways that bigger than just the one-on-one, which I love, but there are societal issues. And I realize that as an elder, it's my time. It's my time to speak out for all of those who have, young families and are doing this great work, but can't really financially in no way can take that risk. It's just too big for them. And they're greatly needed. And so I saw it as like a sign. Oh, okay. This is good, and I will be free,
Ah,
out of the constraints of I mean, I know who I am, and I actually don't really need all these uh, constructions of degrees and this and that. I mean, yes, to do certain things you do need it. I understand, like, you don't do surgery if you're not a surgeon, but I mean, there's education and then there's law. you know
right.
and and yeah, I think we have to look at things in a much bigger way. So I actually feel free.
Ooh, I like that, because you say it so well. We need the free voices to freely speak and share your wisdom.
Mhm.
We need the wise ones to share their wisdom, no matter what. And
Mhm.
you seem to have such a beautiful energy about you as an energy worker. I have to, you have this beautiful energy about you, which is very confident at a time of turmoil. And as I said about the second chapter coming, like the third chapter, another chapter coming, is that once the collective memory of this starts to settle, there are going to be a lot of voices, one voice at a time, that's going to say, I need, I need to understand how the body heals. We want to understand, what did we just go through? And then
Yeah.
that's going to be a whole nother healing,
Mm-hmm.
which is back in where I am in a general practice. Yes, we were talking about masks, and we were talking about just, how we're going to handle the next stage of coming back to the new normal, or the post-pandemic normal, or just getting out of this stage. And it was brought to our attention that, and I actually like this, it came from one of the founding members. We need to allow people to start getting their voice back. Everybody's so scared and withdrawn right
Yeah.
now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the voice, in her case, I think she was referring to like feeling safe to go to the grocery store, feeling things that never really concerned me.
Mm-hmm.
But there are other people who are very, very scared. And I really heard what you said when you wanted to speak up about not having fear. We know what fear does to the body. It goes right into the body.
Mm-hmm.
It
Mm-hmm.
goes right into
Yep.
the body. And if that's the one thing that, I do for the next decade, which is to release fear and trauma from the body,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
stay good at keeping trauma out of my body, or if it does come in, because I will have things that will
Mm-hmm.
traumatize me, that I don't let it, interrupt my ability to be connected to that intuitive wisdom.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny. It's making me remember this morning what you're saying, because a big part of my practice has been trauma and releasing fear. But what was so clear to me this morning is releasing betrayal. I just had this huge wave of, like, it's almost, seeing it come of people feeling betrayed, deeply betrayed. I mean, there's so much, family stuff going on and differences, and, and I'm all for people choosing what they want. That part I have no issues, and respecting people's choices once they choose. Whether it's informed choice or not is maybe more my pet peeve. Are people really getting everything they need to make that informed choice? I don't think so. Not the way the marketing has been, and not the pressure. There's been a lot of pressure, I think, at least in Canada, a lot of coercion and things that go against the ability to make an informed choice. But what I see happening is people who might now start looking at this more carefully and feel an incredible betrayal.
Right.
That's what I just see, that I just feel it right through me. So I'm going to study that a little bit for myself, because yeah, it's such a strong feeling.
Yeah, and that sense of authority, and who has authority over us. And ultimately, can I go back to the example of the childbirth?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I told two stories of childbirth now that I think about it today. One was recent C-section, emergency C-section, and the other was early when the pandemic first hit, and the woman was told, you're not even really supposed to come into the hospital. We'd like you to do this birth on your own. And that's a time where that woman's body is responsible, and you listen to the body, and that's the beginning of life.
Yeah.
So that's how the body works. It knows how to get life. We're all here as of today, as far as I know, on the planet. We're all here because we were born. I mean, really, we're time dating it, because something new is coming from that soon.
Yep.
But, as far as I know, we were all born, so we all are here because we survived that experience.
Mm-hmm.
Respect to those who didn't. and a lot didn't. So, so why from that moment on do we start ripping away the abilities, to heal? And so, in fact, in case anyone's wondering, like, well, you said C-section, like, yeah, well, they wouldn't have cut her open if they didn't know she was going to be able to heal back. Right. So it's this healing on top of healing on top of healing.
Yeah.
And I love the idea of just a nice kind of wake up call for, wait a minute, my body can heal. And that's going to be, people might not get there in this lifetime, but I hope more than most will. I know I'm stumbling over my words, but we're still in the middle of all this. We're still in the, I asked you how the shock was. I'm like, how's my shock? We're still inside of it. I mean, don't you feel that?
Oh yeah. We're not done with the shock. Yeah, no, it's gonna be interesting. I mean, I honestly have never in my life wanted to be as wrong as I do now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And at the same time, I'm thinking, gosh, everyone knows me as the optimist, and I can't help it. I see things always optimistically, and I just think realistically, I don't even see it as optimism. To me, it just seems like, well, of course, and I do think there's got to be something that will help to make sense of everything that's happening and will happen, or hopefully not, but I can't see. I just can't. I don't have the paradigm to not see what I see. I'm stuck in
except
what I
that
see.
Except that you do have the paradigm that the body heals. I'm not saying this to make you feel better or worse, but that we are highly adaptive and highly intelligent. And I know I am surprised all the time by how the human body, but also animals, if I work with animals, persevere under the worst circumstances. So I don't know. I know what you're talking about, and I know what you and I are talking about, but as I tap in intuitively, I feel like we also want to introduce that you don't mess with the human body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree.
It usually gets the last laugh in one way or the other. And it would make sense that on a conscious level I wouldn't be able to like access it per se, but the corrections that we'll see. And I do have a doctor I know who was one of the first people who did get an injection, but also is the strongest advocate for not getting it a choice. And I said, how are you remedying this? He said, I know what I'm going to do. He said, I'll have to take care of it. So where there's an ailment, there's a remedy.
Yeah, it is my belief, right? But that's where you see the mind at work creating beliefs, and there's that unknown of how it will manifest still. And I can see that. I can see the gap. I'm also looking at the things I don't know. Like I understand the heart frequency, and I understand the power of that, and I'm looking at, okay, will that be the force strong enough? Will that shift the magnetic energy around? Like, why wouldn't it? So I just don't know how. So it's a time where I'm not pessimistic. I'm still not. I'm at that edge where I just feel that pain, and I'm just allowing it because I don't know. And all of the knowing are theories right now. Internally, I think there's going to be phases to this. So is more like, okay, the beginning, as we started our interview, we're at the beginning of this very intense voyage.
And you're such a healer. We both are. And, we have people walk in the door and that the healing, you don't know how it's going to go.
Right.
But you have this, well, maybe we are coming full circle where it's not, I get it. It's not pessimism and it's not optimism, but it's saying, I'm just going to keep doing what I do, which is to love on the situation, control what I can control, understand what I can't control.
Mm-hmm.
And then also I think there's a lot of room for there. We have an actress down in, there's this actress, it's unrelated to this. So, but she's, named Susan Sarandon, and she was doing something unrelated to healthcare. It was something to do with social justice. And she was in an interview and it said, how did you get into this? And she said, well, as an actress, I started to study the human condition. Mm-hmm. And by studying the human condition, I became very fascinated by, what's right or what's wrong. And so we're not actresses per se, but we study the human condition for a living. Totally. And so you become a part of the movement of any justice, any injustice that you see.
Exactly.
You have to speak up. And so that comes naturally in the healing archetype as well. But what if we also loved on it, the last chapter in my book, there's I don't know, can I do a spoiler alert? I think it's a good one.
Yeah, go for it. And we should also wrap up, so make that your perfect
my last chapter. Keep talking about chapters. So last chapter in my book, I introduce a new character who you haven't met before. And he is a beautiful soul who had been seeing me for cancer for about a year. And he was doing really well with his treatments. And I know he was working with naturopathic, and he was also working with Dana Farber down in Boston. And he was also working with me, the energy healer, right? So he's doing a good job. He's putting a good team around him. And he walked in and he said, I really want a special appointment this time. And I said, how so? And he said, I just feel like I don't understand love in the big picture. He actually called it God. Didn't even quite say it that way. He said, I'm familiar, the name of the chapter is called Beanstalk. And he says, I'm familiar with this idea that there's some big guy in the sky. And it's like the kid who climbs a beanstalk, and it's like a big, mean giant in the sky. And I said, okay. And he said, I know I've got to sort that out. There's something I need more. And I said, well, I can certainly see how you could get confused based on like the stories and the messages. And I don't know what his dogma or religious background was, but that fairy tale seemed about right. Like there's this big guy in the sky that punishes you if you go for the golden egg. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not even subtle. It's a good fairy tale. It's a good teaching story for the kids. And, or not good, it's just a story for whatever reason. Yeah. It's a story, and maybe not good or bad. Not good, not bad, just is. And so I said, oh, yes, but that's not a story about love and unconditional love and how the body heals and how, and he said, I really want to know more about that. And said, let's get doing some body work. And so he got on the therapeutic table. And as soon as we started working, as if some beautiful spirit had been eavesdropping on us, the whole room shifted. And I felt something that was more powerful than usual, to say the least. And I asked him if he felt that. And he said, I do. And I said, what is it? And he said, it's love everything in capital letters. So I make notes for my clients at the end. And this particular day, there were no notes except the block letters, love everything. And he wrote me a note. He was cleared from the cancer. So that doesn't make sense, but it doesn't need to.
It doesn't need to.
Yeah. So wow. I think that's kind of a funny way to leave it in the middle of everything, but we're keep stirring the pot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Hilary, it was wonderful talking with you and finding out more about you. And I've really enjoyed myself.
Yeah, I loved it as well. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us at the Healers Café with Dr. Manon. For more information, go to drmanonbolliger.com.